The psychedelic revolution is here. If you want to integrate your visionary experiences into your purpose, get clear on your entrepreneurial path, and help people while you do what you love, then this podcast is for you. Welcome to The Psychedelic Entrepreneur, Medicine for These Times. I'm your host, Beth Weinstein. I'm a spiritual business coach, 3-time entrepreneur, and a lifelong student of psychedelics and sacred plant medicines. You carry your own unique medicine, and your medicine is what we need for these times. This podcast will help you to share your medicine so you can create transformation in the world. Listen in on conversations with psychedelic leaders, changemakers, and conscious entrepreneurs who are living proof that a better world is possible when you follow your heart and live in alignment with your soul. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Psychedelic Entrepreneur Podcast. We have Shiri Godasi here with us, who is an awesome leader in the psychedelic space, and I had to bring her on as soon as possible to have her share about what's going on with this whole, I love calling it new, even though it's totally ancient, renaissance with psychedelics and integration, and start to open up this conversation about what it means to be a psychedelic integration coach or make psychedelics your career or become a psychedelic entrepreneur. So Shiri, thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, it's so good to have you. So tell people a little bit, first and foremost, what is it that you're up to? Like, what do you offer? What do you do? Who are you out there in the world, in case people don't actually know you?
Ooh, well, that's a big question.
I know.
Thank you for asking. I'll try to just provide the cliff notes. What's relevant is I'm a 5-time psychedelic entrepreneur. I've been working in this sphere since about 2015-16. I'm the founder and the co-founder of 5 psychedelic organizations and businesses, including the nonprofit organization PsychedeLiA Los Angeles. I have my coaching alias as a psychedelic integration coach. I'm also the creator and director of the Psyched Soul Academy, which is an integration certification and sacred business program for emerging psychedelic leaders. And what else did I miss? Oh, and also the founder of Psychedelic School, among other things. Who I am in the world is an artist, a mother, a human being that's really just trying to move through this journey in the best way that I can while serving the world. And that's kind of it in a nutshell.
I love it. I love it. And you're holding such a big space right now. I mean, I really look up to you as a leader. A lot of my clients have worked with you. I've heard nothing but great things about your program. I've even considered joining your program just so I can understand everything you teach, because of course we always need to learn and grow. But tell me, or tell the audience, how did you get on to this journey of making psychedelics and teaching others, your career?
Yeah, thank you. So like many of us that are operating in the psychedelic entrepreneurship sphere, I've been on my own healing journey for a while and had a mind-bending, heart-expanding MDMA experience back in one of the festivals I used to attend. And from that moment on, once my awareness has been expanded through that medium, there was just no looking back. There was no way that I could go back to living life and out of that small shell that I grew up in. And I just started following the breadcrumbs of getting to know myself, getting to know my energy, my capacity, my creative side, and really just trying to express it as best as I can while being attuned to what is being asked of me and the community that I met, and yeah, just really listening to what services were needed. And that's how all these businesses that I listed were really created, just bit by bit.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing. And so what I'm curious about, because I know there's always this moment. I had this too. A lot of my clients, probably a lot of your clients, have these pivotal moments where they have this kind of peak experience that changes the trajectory or opens up something inside of them. I'm curious, what is it that you were up to before this amazing heart-opening MDMA experience? Were you in a completely different realm? I don't know. I always make jokes because I worked at a pet food store once. Were you working at a pet food store? Like that kind of thing?
Not a pet food. Well, I mean, not that exactly, but I did do plenty of other things en route to where I'm at right now. Some of those things is that I was a preschool teacher. I studied creative education for my undergrad and taught a preschool kindergarten class. I was also being a creative. I was a makeup artist, worked for corporate, worked for MAC, the cosmetics company, as well as a startup airbrush makeup company where I was a head trainer. So I did a lot of like body art, stuff like that, and traveled a lot. And I also had a boutique catering business. So I was also a pastry chef.
Oh my God.
But really so those are some of the things I did, but really the emerging theme or the common thread between all of those is that they all had to do with creation and wanting to nurture and connect with people. So either by eating yummy foods or, of course, doing makeup is a very intimate experience where you basically become the client's therapist and you help them find their inner beauty in that process. And of course, being with children, there was a lot of creativity in that. But throughout all these different careers, another common thread was that I couldn't find any satisfaction or rest doing any of those. Hence, that's why I kept switching and trying on different hats and trying to find the avenue where I would feel most fulfilled and where I could feel that my creative genius or my soul medicine could really be utilized and put to work. Dare I say work? Also play through it. And so I tried on all these different hats according to, the circumstance from which I grew up in. I grew up in Israel. I was an immigrant. I moved to the United States when I was 11 years old and went through living here a big part of my life, but being undocumented, which means that I didn't have access to higher education. I didn't even have access to actually working, believe it or not. I didn't even have papers where I could legally work here, even as an adult, which I'm not going to get into the whys, but that was just the reality of it. So basically, this kind of forced me to take any job that I could get my hands on, while still trying to remain as much as an integrity as possible to what I'm interested in. But that, obviously, because I didn't have that much freedom in choosing completely what I could do, I just found myself in situations that were very dissatisfying, to say the least, dangerous sometimes, and just definitely not honoring who I am and my ability and capacity. And honestly, just came to a time in my life, the time right before I had this big experience that I mentioned, where I was in my mid 30s and again, traveling as a makeup artist and just doing all these things, like really hard labor that I felt like a woman like myself, I don't have to do this. No one has to do this. And I'm definitely not doing this. This is like so not what I'm here for. And just started praying and meditating and praying for change, praying for something bigger that would help me move out of this life circumstance. And that's when psychedelics came into my life. Thank God. My prayers were heard. And yeah, again, just started following the breadcrumbs and all the opportunities that came through that avenue. And my life has completely turned around in, again, 5 or 6 years. And when I say completely, I mean completely, not just in terms of vocation, but again, I was a single woman, divorced at the time. Let me say what happened in these 5 years, aside from all these businesses that I created. I also met my husband, Dr. Ben Malcom. We met at a psychedelic conference and got married within 6 months, just because, instead of going to the date, like movie and dinner night, we just did LSD and just got to know each other like really intimately and rapidly in a short amount of time. And, we moved to our own home. We started new jobs. Of course, we had a child. And yeah, just, we've been doing so great, thank goodness that even Ben has been inspired. Ben was working in a university as a psychiatric pharmacist professor, and he's been watching my entrepreneurship journey in the psychedelic sphere for the past few years, and so impressed that he himself actually left corporate university and just a few months ago, and he's a full-time psychedelic entrepreneur now, like myself, doing his own thing, just being a trailblazer in his own right, providing a lot of really useful scientific information and medical advice to people who use psychedelics, and yeah, so it's been quite a journey.
That's funny. I thought Ben did this full time all these years, because I've been watching him for years now, a few years, and I have noticed things have been picking up, but I just figured that was the world that we're in. I'm like, his work is needed out there because he's the scientist that has this background. And I'll definitely bring him on here as well.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. All of this so fast. And I do know you have the psychedelic school where you teach, I assume it's like mostly newer integration coaches, because integration coaching in itself is kind of this new realm. I hate using the word new because I'm like, all of this is so ancient. But from what I understand, I think you've sold out the programs. You even added extra programs. It's been very busy as all of this is growing so exponentially. So tell people, I'm curious, the audience. I know there's a lot of people watching because, of course, I talk to people every day. A lot of my clients who are interested in making psychedelics their career, whether it's through integration coaching or through some sort of psychedelic assisted coaching or even facilitation. I'm curious, talk about who comes to you and your programs. Like, what are people looking to do with their career? And I'm curious if everybody wants to make it their career or they're just kind of there for fun. Some of them, like I would be.
Yeah, great question. So currently my program is only in its second year of operation. Just to give a little background of what it is, and then I'll share about who it's serving right now. It started out when I had people that saw me at conferences and asked me if I had any type of mentorship program or a long-term integration container that they could join, which at the time I didn't at all. However, I did have a lot of material and educational content that I created for my clients that I was working with one-on-one at the time. So just had tons of stuff on my computer, and basically, again, listening to what my clients were asking. I thought, well, maybe I can take everything that I've already created and set it up in a way that's linear and more structured, and take people on their own integration journey as a group, because I absolutely believe that, to be integration, not just integration, psychedelic support people of high caliber, you have to have undergone the integration process yourself. And not just one or two sessions of integration, but long-term, mindful, ongoing integration that you've been able to observe emerging themes and basically the changes and the habit changes that you've cultivated in your life. And this only happens over time. So I started taking people on this integration healing journey where they learn my methodology, which is called the Psyched Soul method. That's my integration protocol. And they go through it in the group as clients. And then I added to that coaching methods and how to hold a psychedelic business. And then, I started getting requests. Well, how do we turn this into actual business? Like, what do we do with it? How do I advertise myself? So I added the sacred business module. And then it just, from an 8-month program, it turned out to be, currently it's a 1-year program, but next year it's probably going to turn into probably a 2-year program, because what it turns out that it's 3 programs in one. So it is a integration healing journey, and then a professional coaching program, and a sacred business mastery program in one. So it just kind of grew and grew, and the people that have joined the group so far, and this year I'm doing my fourth and fifth groups, are basically there. Most of them have, are of course, in their experience with psychedelics. Meaning, I also, I interview people. They have to go through an application process. I handpick and curate the group in a way that I feel would be. Would create a container that could be beneficial for all. So this is really important to me.
Good. I was actually going to ask if everybody's even done psychedelics or even, had deep experiences, or maybe someone has one experience and they want to just dedicate their life to it. Do you interview for that as well? I'm curious.
I definitely interview for experience, but what I really look for most is not how many times you've tried psychedelics, but an openness for transformation and understanding of the healing work aspect, and a desire to grow and serve, which is really important. I always ask in my interviews when I interview prospective students is, who are the people that you wish to serve? Why are you here? What do you want to do this program? Because my intention is more than to teach, is basically to create social change. I have come to a stage in my business, as a coach, when I started out working one-on-one with people, I came to just a point where I realized that my time is just a one person trying to create change. Time is limited, but if I take myself and multiply myself, basically, then I can multiply my impact and the change that I want to see in the world. And basically, I teach these people, again, who are all on a healing journey on their own. They're deeply devoted to their inner work and want to create this change. I teach them how to basically become leaders in their communities and to create that change. So, there is a protocol that they go to, and then they take the structure I provide to them and they create a completely new integration modality according to who they are and the change that they want to see. So people basically walk out of the program with like multiple integration philosophies that they can implement according to who they are and what their soul's medicine is.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about this, because this is something I teach my clients as well. And it's always been really a very deep part of my own journey, is having this bigger mission in the world. Like, it's not just about having some clients and making some money and that's your business. It's about really creating an impact. And we do this one by one, where it's a domino effect. Like, the more people we can help, the more they can help, and so on and so on. So let's talk about, how you see entrepreneurship, or, psychedelic entrepreneurship, as this catalyst for creating a larger scale change in the world, especially as we know, psychedelics are growing exponentially fast in the mainstream, with decriminalization and legalization and just awareness. How do you see your clients, or anybody even listening or watching this, to become entrepreneurs to create this change in the world? How is this connected?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, integration in itself, what is the healing journey about? It's about an individual journey of a return to wholeness, of self-discovery, of self-ownership, of empowerment. And from when we create the change within ourselves, then we begin creating the change in the collective. And the way that I see psychedelic entrepreneurship as a form of social activism is, when we as individuals go through that inner healing journey, when we reclaim all the different pieces of ourselves, we do that shadow work, we understand all the inner archetypes that are at work, a lot of us find that we are in some way medicine people. We actually realize that we are the witches of our time. Witches in the sense of the word, that we are wisdom keepers. We hold a lot of knowledge. We are instigators of change. And we know that we are here at this time, in this period in humanity, as light workers, as some people would call, to cultivate and create this evolution in consciousness. We are shepherds and stewards of the new consciousness into planet Earth. And when we understand that we have that ability, again, and this all comes from doing your own healing work, right? When you understand how powerful you are, how much energy you have, the meaning of yourself as an individual, again, being as part of this group, that we're meant to make this change, and that basically we can do anything that we want if we just get out of our own fucking way.
Big time.
Exactly.
That's all it is. I'm like, you guys, it's so simple.
Exactly.
It's just really hard.
It's really just a journey of, I mean, honestly, like, it may sound complicated, but all of this, if anyone is listening, if you really want to know the gist of the healing work, is just about believing in yourself and how perfect you already are. And we need to believe in ourselves and to have the courage to just take imperfect action. We don't have to wait to be perfect to take action. We don't have to be perfect to help others. We don't have to be perfect to create anything. Our creations and all their imperfections are God's gifts. And when you show up imperfectly, then you give other people permission and the courage to show up imperfectly as well. And that level of vulnerability is what heals the world.
And perfection is an illusion in itself.
Exactly.
Like the idea of imperfect, because I'm constantly saying this to clients and, and to my audience as well, is even this notion of being imperfect versus perfect. I'm like, everything actually is perfect as is, which, of course, there's the mind versus the reality. And that's where so many humans get caught up in this, like, and then they get stuck and they're like, I can't do any, but it's so simple. It's
so simple, and
the mind.
Learn. Yeah, and exactly. So understanding that you're not perfect, and that's perfect in itself, and then having the courage to express yourself, which is the other piece of it, right? So this is what I call next level integration. So it's one thing to integrate and be whole and complete in your house if you feel, you feel like you've done your healing work and you're feeling good about yourself, but you're not really doing anything with this healing. And it's completely different to go out into the world and express who you are in all this healing in front of your community with other people, learning how to speak up, again, learning to take up space in the world. So entrepreneurship in that regard is you're taking all that inner healing work and integrating it into the fabric of humanity. And when you bring that healing with all of its imperfections, that's how we create the change. And of course, along the way, we haven't really said much about, even as a psychedelic community, there's a lot of shadow work that we're doing here. So much is at play. I'm going to start naming them one by one, okay? Unpopular or not. But like money is a big issue. Why? Have you ever heard that psychedelic healing should be free? How many times have we heard that? Okay.
Don't even, I'm like, I know it's like one of my favorite subjects to talk about. I'm like, I constantly say, I'm like, have you ever seen ayahuasca being made in real life and how much human labor is involved? I get it. I could do a whole entire podcast on that.
Yeah. I mean, so the money is an aspect. And of course, in some ways we can understand why, because there's this corporate takeover right now. There's the capitalism where we have companies literally trying to call out patents on nature and on creating a room in the therapy with a lamp and in a carpet in the room, and they want to patent that
for $3,000 a pop, right?
Exactly. And then there's the medical model, basically this whole decrim idea there, which is beautiful. We want to decriminalize, and at the same time, we're also witnessing. All these schedules are all these substances are about to be removed from Schedule 1, but who's going to have the authority now? Not the people, the doctors are. So basically there is a shift of power dynamics, and we may feel like there's still not a lot of, we haven't really reached the level of social justice that we're after, right? Minorities don't have access. Our community is super white. There's cultural appropriation. We're definitely, in some ways, the West and the psychedelic renaissance is absolutely capitalizing on indigenous ideas, and we're not giving back to these communities. They're suffering. So we have a lot of work to do, for sure, a lot of awareness. I believe that a big part in the responsibility of emerging entrepreneurs in the psychedelic sphere is having these conversations, being honest with ourselves, and most importantly, not shame each other, which I feel is another thing that I've really noticed in the community with some of the events we've had recently. People calling out each other in public, just throwing people out of the closet, shining like
Mm-hmm.
spotlights on them, doing stupid TMZ style videos on other like psychedelic people, which is just absurd. I mean, this is definitely not the way to heal. We need to have
Yeah.
dialogues. We need to converse. We need to be open. We need to hold each other accountable, but to do this all with kindness. But
That goes for cancel culture to me in every
yeah,
community too. I mean, this is a huge, because we're seeing this where people are just shutting down. And I'm like, well, that's not going to help any change on this
exactly. Like
planet,
they're pushing people underground even more. And again, this is the opposite of integration. This is all separation. You're
Mm-hmm.
pushing them into the shadow. This is not going to help anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I definitely believe the way forward. And again, one of the biggest responsibilities we have as leaders is these relationships and talking about everything in the open and helping each other out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. So yeah, money is a big, the shadow taboo. What else has come up? Because I know I've there's a lot of this that's kind of like, how do we navigate? Everybody's trying to figure out, and I don't believe there is one authority that's in charge that gets it all right. It's like you're saying, it's a constant conversation, exploration, what's working, what's not working, who's being served. But yeah, what else has come up for you? Because I know this. It's just I believe Earth is going through its deep, deep, like dark night of the soul on some level, and it's time to sit in it and actually do the work, even though
Yeah.
it's really damn uncomfortable.
It is uncomfortable. And, another responsibility that I feel like I have, well, first and foremost towards myself that, I really want to emphasize because I feel like a lot of other psychedelic positive people, I started off as someone who really wants to serve this movement, right? I had like this fire that was burning within me that I knew I needed to serve people. And I felt like I needed to do it through the the psychedelic renaissance. And then just started creating things left and right, all the while going through a lot of healing work myself and losing myself in the process, which is something that I really want to name because I feel like psychedelics right now are being highly celebrated, as they should be, for all their properties and their ability to, again, to propel positive change in every single one of us and in humanity and consciousness. But not enough is said about how potentially dangerous they are. How I feel personally that, just as much as they can help heal and help us manage mental health conditions like depression, anxiety, PTSD, addiction, they can actually be the cause for all of these conditions. And the reason for that is because we don't yet have all these support structures in place. We don't have the proper education for therapists and clinicians. And basically, I'm learning all of this just by being a woman that engages with psychedelics myself. And, obviously doing it in the public eye is, can be, is a whole journey of its own, which I didn't even necessarily think about when I started just, creating all these organizations, but just, in hindsight now, 6 years later, I just kind of see like all the things that I've been through as a person. And recently I've started to talk on Instagram about, my challenges with mental health and, my own depression, my own anxiety, which I actually absolutely believe that were in some ways have been caused by my psychedelic use, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah. I can talk for hours about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been that journey. And actually, this is something that's interesting. When I talk publicly about psychedelics, I very often say, look, these are actually not for everybody, especially, if you're not getting the proper support, if you don't have other like and this is what I teach to my clients as well. My psychedelic integration is a moment to moment practice. It's not something you do once before or after a ceremony. It's literally every waking moment of your life. Like, what are your daily practices and how are you taking care of yourself and what support do you have, especially right now in the crazy world that we're in? They are not the cure all. They don't make things easier. I probably very much like you. I went through really deep, hard lessons, like really dark nights of the souls. And the only way I actually came out of it into the better life, like you, it's like, okay, everything just started blowing up and going great, but I got so much damn support. And it wasn't easy, if anything, they make things really shake to the surface, a lot. So go on. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that when you're in the public eye like that, you don't really necessarily have the room to go and hide and do this healing work, and I mean, maybe you can, but at least for me, just again, I'm a mother, I'm a teacher, I have a family, I have dozens of students that rely on me week after week. I can't just check out and go through my soul, the document of the soul and come back. So the solution for that, what I found has been really healing for me is just to keep very transparent and sharing with my students exactly where I'm at as a woman that's also on a healing journey, like everyone else in the circle. And some of that deeply has to do also with my entrepreneurship ventures. And I think one of the reasons, and I've named all these things that I've created, again, 5 organizations, none of them have been ever planned in my mind, meaning every single one of them was just literally just feeling right about having a vision about the way that I feel like I should live my life and serve, and then creating it. And basically going through different incarnations of my interest as a psychedelic positive person and the way that I want to show up in the world. And basically learning that I have to give myself permission to keep changing and keep aligning with my soul's truth, even if it means that a certain, company or organization no longer is aligned with me, then I have to learn how to let it go gracefully and just remain transparent about why I'm doing so. But this is not easy because a lot of people think that, okay, once you create something, this is what you have to do and you're going to be associated with it. And that is completely false. Give yourself permission to change yourself at every moment and keep aligning with who you are. Yes. So I'll just give an example. For example, Psychedelic School, which I've been working on for the last year and a half, which has been amazing, right? I mean, it's what we do there is basically my husband and I, we have on-demand courses for to educate people who use psychedelics. And recently I'm realizing actually, and this is the first time I'm uttering it out of my mouth, and here we go, like on a public forum. Okay, here we go. That actually using the word psychedelic has been extremely limiting to who I am. When I got started 6 years ago, this was again like me, hell or high water. I'm a psychedelic woman, and I want to create psychedelic change. Maybe that is still true, but to a degree, meaning I'm realizing that there is so much more to me in my spirit than just being the psychedelic person. And psychedelics are actually like a very small part of who I am. And as long as I keep creating ventures that are, again, they have the word psychedelic in them, I'm going to keep limiting my soul to have to keep showing up in that specific way. And it's not my medicine to be that anymore. So right now, while, I'm seeing how the importance of psychedelic school, and I see how inspiring it has been for a lot of people, definitely for me, I'm also giving myself permission to take a step away from it and explore the other aspects of myself and see how I can, again, just make that one piece of a much larger puzzle and bring more of my medicine to the world. So
I would just want to take a moment and honor you, because it's really interesting. Even coming up with the name of this podcast, I really struggled because I was like, honestly, the psychedelics is like maybe 2% of what I do. It's just a huge part of my path to get to where I am. And it's on, a lot of my clients are on this path as well. But honestly, even for them, it's still like tiny percentage. It's just, there's so much more to it. It's like a very deep spiritual journey. And I was like, but I don't want to limit myself to just this. But I did want to speak to the people that were interested in this, who thought, okay, psychedelics, magic bullet, make this a career or make this. And I was like, no. I mean, it's actually a very deep initiation as you go into this journey of entrepreneurship, whether there's psychedelics involved or not. It's so secondary. So I honor you for saying that. And honestly, most everybody who I'm friends with in the psychedelic realm, it's kind of the same story. It's like, Kyle, the founder of Psychedelics Today, I'm like, the guy talks about breath work more than psychedelics. or
Mm-hmm.
somatics, because
Mm-hmm.
he's just like me and probably just like you. It's so much more than just the medicine or the medicine here or the peak experience. So I honor you for sharing that, because it's also the reality of I think our society, I keep saying it's the Amazon effect, where people just want, the instant Amazon Prime delivery of, happiness the next day. And I'm like, no, there's so much more to it than that. So thank
Yeah.
you for sharing that.
Thank you. And exactly. And this kind of like now circles back to one of your previous questions about, so what really happens in the program and who are the people that come to my program? I mean, they all walk out with if as long as they, follow the guidelines and fulfill the responsibilities, they will walk out with a certificate that certifies them. Of course, it's like a private certification to become that and call themselves a psychedelic integration coach. However, they may not even call themselves that, but they're going to take that modality, which again, I call it integration, but let's face it, Carl Jung called it active imagination.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many other healing modalities that, we're pretty much all teaching very similar things, which is just returning to the self-ownership, mindfulness, and self-honor. And we're going to call it different things. Right now, it's called psychedelic integration.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, we're all going back just to doing this reclamation of our spirit and our souls. And so if we need to call it psychedelic integration for people to return back home, so be it.
Yeah. I am so glad you're bringing this up, because I am constantly saying this to my clients as well. I'm like, look, psychedelic integration to me is almost like code word. It's kind of just it's a terminology that relates to people who do psychedelics, but in reality, it's exactly what you just said. It's this deep level healing, the shadow work, the looking in the mirror and really understanding yourself on a level that you haven't been at yet. And that's where people, especially these days, could really use support and need help, whether it's, whether you want to call yourself a psychedelic coach or not, it doesn't even matter, because it's all essentially, if you're working with someone good who's done the work and done the training or various kinds of training, it all brings you back to that same place, which is wholeness, and really, I always say it's self-love, it's coming into yourself, like finding that really deep level of self-love and self-compassion and understanding for yourself, which then radiates out to others, hopefully. And that's, what I see is like the catalyst for the real change that we need to make on this planet. So I'm curious, actually, now that you brought this up, I've always had this question of, because I've seen this even with some of my clients or even with my own self as I went to get an integration coach. But back then, there was no such thing. So it was actually just a person who's a therapist who works with psychedelics. And she's not even a psychedelic assisted therapist. She's just, a kind of like a counselor. But do you think that there are a lot of people who are using psychedelics and working with medicines who don't think they need integration? Because has been my theory for a few years, where I'm like, a lot of people don't even think they need integration. Are you finding that to be a thing out there? And how do we go about kind of getting this conversation going in a bigger way?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the challenges that we have, or one of our responsibilities that we have now as psychedelic integration support people, is the educational aspect, meaning to share why we think it's important to have that type of support. It is true there is a big group of psychedelic users that don't necessarily feel like they need integration support because, we haven't really had maybe necessarily that need in all the years where psychedelic work has been underground. Do want to differentiate that in all these years, I think that most people that use psychedelics since the drug war started have been people that were really heavily invested and interested in those drugs and felt very confident in their use. There hasn't been a lot of media hype around them. So I feel like, honestly, these psychedelics reached the very specific people that could handle their shit, basically. Right now, because they're just, again, celebrated and completely overhyped in many ways, I feel like we're also getting a really big message of these are magic pills. Take them once and it'll change your life. Take MDMA 3 times and your PTSD will be healed. You're going to go resolve your sexual trauma, etc. And when we put promises like that on the table, then it is, in fact, this message is going to reach a whole lot of people that are desperate for this healing. And typically people who are desperate for this healing, they're just dealing with certain circumstance and personality aspects that I feel already put them in a group of people that make them more predisposed to the risk, to suffering from the risk of psychedelic use.
Yeah.
So we just have to look at the greater picture here and understand that psychedelic use is much better off contextualized. Right now, they're not. More people are entering ceremonies than we can get a grip on. There isn't a lot of medical evaluation. Tons of people who are taking antidepressants are hearing that they can heal their depression with ayahuasca and may not necessarily know that if they go into an ayahuasca ceremony, if they're taking an SSRI, they can die. We have in Los Angeles, or at least we used to have, an ayahuasca facilitator that literally just served the medicine out of Dixie cups and put on the Gayatri mantra on loop for 5 hours because he really believed that everyone should drink the medicine. And I don't think that he was doing any medical screening, for example, right?
Oh my God.
So basically, there are a lot more people at risk, and integration, one of the ways that integration coaches are serving right now, we're like the gatekeepers of harm reduction. We do a lot of education. We do safety assessments. We help the person understand what their resources are, how much time they feel like they may have for the healing work, what their goals and intentions are. We help bring more clarity and yeah, just talk about the risks just as much as the benefits, which again, I feel like in some way we're counterbalancing or balancing the current conversation right now. So
I am so glad you brought this up because I recently heard someone on Clubhouse mention something about, oh, well, SSRI syndrome isn't really a thing, or I don't know. She kind of like poo-pooed it. And so I have firsthand experience where many, many years ago, where it was kind of towards the beginning, and I actually do work with people that do very hardcore medical evaluations for every time you show up. I didn't think about the fact that I had actually taken St. John's wort for a whole month before. And I went into a ceremony and I immediately within the first 5 minutes knew something was wrong. And it was it was very scary. And so I learned that hard way. It was one of the worst experiences I've ever had. And I'm like, I cannot believe people don't take this very seriously. So I'm glad you're talking about harm reduction. And I do believe that, yes, if you're going to make this path your career, you have to understand all the facets. And this actually leads me into the next question, because I know there's a lot of people in the audience, because I meet them all the time. I talk to people who want to start facilitating sessions, meaning one-on-ones or even small groups, or, you know, maybe they think like, well, it's just psilocybin. It's pretty easy. I just want to be a space holder. It's actually been very interesting to see how many people have gotten this call or whatever they say. You know, I've heard other people say, well, you know, the medicine told me I'm here to serve it, you know, after 2 sessions. And I've always tried to take the path of non-judgment. So I'm not here to be the judge, but there's a part of me that of course is a little, you know, kind of concerned. And there's also that part of me that's like, well, maybe this is what humanity needs to learn the lessons the hard way. I mean, that's how unfortunately, I've had some pretty really rough experiences, and that's what brought me to get help with the psychedelic integration finally, where my life I was at kind of a breaking point of, do I want to live, you know, like pretty bad. And exactly like you just said, psychedelics are not the magic pill that fixes, and very often it's the polar opposite. They can make you worse in so many ways. But I'm curious, you know, what do you think? And I'm curious if your program actually attracts a lot of people who want to facilitate. Like, what do you think it's going to look like over the next couple of years? As one of the issues I see, and you mentioned accessibility in the legal space, psychedelic assisted therapy, accessibility is really hard. I personally can't even find someone to give me an official psychedelic assisted therapy. They're all, they're booked up. They're thousands of dollars. They live across the country. And I'm, white and privileged. So the facilitation, it's kind of like this weird place where there's a demand, but then it's the Wild West. So what are your thoughts on people who were being called to facilitate one-on-one sessions for people?
Yeah,
it's a lot. I know.
that desire is very strong in the collective right now.
Yeah.
My best advice would be to always be mentored by an elder and being transparent about what your desires are. And I really, really hope that your mentor will knock some sense into you and to let you know that there's a very big responsibility in holding these spaces. Don't try to do anything on your own. Get trained, get educated. Thankfully, right now, there are so many programs that do teach psychedelics on different levels, whether it's growing mushrooms or supporting people for, trip sitting or doing psychedelic therapy work or anything. We have a lot of opportunities like that now. So if you are hearing the call, again, it's not something that I can judge personally either, but what I can say is it is your responsibility to go get trained and get a skill set. There's a very big difference between having intentions to having a skill set. So while your intentions may be in the right place, and you understand how beautifully healing these substances can be, when other people's psyches are at risk, then it is your responsibility. The least that you can do is go and acquire the skill set to match your intention. That's all I can say about that.
Yeah, no, it's very important. I mean, there are actual skills to learn, and if you're feeling the call, I know there are training programs. There's even these integration training programs. Which, by the way, I think you're only one of how many? 4 out there? 5? I don't even know. There's not many yet. But here's the thing. So I have a question about this. There's a couple programs out there that are 3 months long. Psychedelic integration training. What do you think of that? Because even, I agree that a program like yours could be up to 2, 3, 4 years even, because there's so much to learn. But, what do you think of people who are like, well, I just got this whole certificate in psychedelic integration in 4 months?
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't even know, I didn't even know that these places existed. The shortest program of integration that I know of is about 6 months. But I mean, I will say when I was, a student, then my first coaching certificate was a 4-month program. I definitely learned a lot through there, but I mean, most of the learning that honestly I got was just by working with clients and listening to them and doing a lot of healing work myself and keeping myself in check under my mentors to see how I can serve them better. I feel like right now in this renaissance, because in some ways there are many training opportunities, and in some ways, it's still kind of the wild, wild west out there, and pretty much anyone can call themselves a coach. The best way to learn, again, is to keep showing up and to have those mentors and to always be honest with yourself. If you really feel like you can support a person that suffered from trauma, you can only do that if you have a clinical skill set. How about that? And the only way that I learned that was by actually trying to support a person with trauma. Even though I had, I did study psychology for my master's. I did get a lot of other certifications, but I felt like I was skilled to do it. But it was only through showing up with these clients and learning from them what they needed and really seeing how working with them affected me that I actually realized that maybe I can support them, but I'm not a clinician. And maybe I'm just going to get my ego out of the way so I can focus on things that actually bring me joy instead of trying to support every client out there. You're going to gain the most thriving and abundance by always supporting people that make your heart sing. Not by trying to serve everyone, but by finding out and understanding who your soulmate clients are and focusing on them. So how do we get into this question?
Definitely true. Well, about the idea of these training programs and,
Yeah.
that there's some that don't even go through training, at all. And I do agree. I mean, I say, look, you don't, because coaching and even healing is kind of the Wild West. There's no governing body. So technically you don't need, a certificate, but I won't even work with people that aren't constantly learning and growing. Like I am constantly, I can't even name the amount of programs I'm in and coaches I work with and healers and my own deep, deep level work to be able to then guide others. Because even just as a business coach, I'm like, this is a pretty deep, deep journey. It's transformational. It's not like just learn marketing and go do it. It's you have to change as a person. And that brings up a lot of stuff.
Always.
I'm actually curious, do you find that a lot of your clients in your program go through, as I always say, jump into the fire and, do the deep work? I mean, have you ever encountered also a client who is like, no, I don't want to go there. Like, I can't do this shadow work because I'm like afraid. And I've actually had someone ask me, do you think I could become a facilitator without doing my own shadow work? And I was like, actually, no, I don't think that.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, does that come up?
Yeah, I mean, resistance is there for sure. Like right now with the cohorts that I'm teaching, we're going through the trauma and we're getting into the shadow work. And there definitely are students that feel, maybe feeling overwhelmed, maybe feel like they're not ready to do this right now. I totally respect that. There's as long as they're committed to the journey. And again, that's one of the benefits of joining a longer term program than a shorter term program, is that once you commit to the journey, you're going to ebb and flow with it at your own pace. When you are not ready to go, if you're feeling resistant to something, then you may be having to work on other aspects of yourself. And then you may find that you're more prepared to do the shadow work a month or two later, and that's okay. But do I believe that people who haven't done this inner work, if they're able to support people, I mean, they can, technically, you are able to. Would you be able to do it masterfully and without damaging the other client? Probably not. So, there's so much that we can learn and we need to learn as integration supporters. There's stuff that has to do with boundaries, with communication, which, by the way, goes both ways, not just boundaries to protect the client, but also boundaries to protect you. Yeah. When we work with psychic energy, we have other things at stake. It's not just a business transaction like it may be when you go and buy a product from someone else. We have a consciousness interaction. You're constantly swimming in the same consciousness pool. You need to have really good hygiene, understanding of how consciousness and energy work so you can take care of yourself and not feel completely drained at the end of the day. So I feel like psychedelic work just has a whole different set of rules to it. And I understand that if, maybe some people are going to be listening to this and thinking, what the heck, like, she's insane, but that's totally okay.
No, it's very real.
Yeah, I used to think that too. All these things I literally just learned by client interaction, seeing how I was functioning, measuring my well-being, seeing how much time I had left for myself, seeing my reactions. I'd be on vacation and clients would be texting me like, am I going to answer them? Am I not going to answer them? Like I literally learned all of this through trial and error. And I definitely believe, if you're a person that does want to create impact, that does want to serve, and at the end of the day, I feel all of us do, you will be able to serve a lot more people when you understand this energetic economy. Because if you want to make an impact, you're going to have a lot of people looking at you and a lot of energy coming to you. You're going to have to learn how to hold that energetic field without collapsing. So I do believe that our financial abundance and our impact as leaders proportionally grows to the level of ability of the skill set that you have yourself with that energetic skill set that I just mentioned.
Yes. Your own personal development is always tied to your own other growth, like the abundance, the success, the manifesting love and having a baby and getting married in 6 months. I mean, it's all interconnected. I say this all the time. That's actually usually how I know my clients are going, especially when they're beginning. If they start seeing things changing in their life very quickly, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, you're in that alignment. you're able to hold this. It's only up from here, as long as you're willing to sit in it and like sit in the fire of there's going to be discomfort. There's going to be scary shit as you share yourself, as you come out as a leader. Speaking up in this crazy world that we're in right now it's tough. So I get it. And I'm so glad you take such an amazing perspective on this. So before we, conclude, I just want to recap these very important points on, becoming an entrepreneur, whether it's a psychedelic entrepreneur or not, but as I call it, transformational entrepreneurship, people who are here to create conscious change on the planet, which I do believe, as Shiri said, this is what we're here for. This is why we're all born right now at this interesting, beautiful, yet kind of insane time in history. And, it's going to take you getting support, you really understanding who you are at your deepest level and constantly doing the work, and I always say, look, it's not always, unicorns and roses. It's going to be this up and down of, into the depths. And I do believe when you are really stepping up as a leader in this world and really called to do this high level work with other humans, it only means that the universe is going to give you more of your stuff to heal. I mean, that's how it goes. It's relational. So Shiri, this has been so awesome to hear, these truths about psychedelics. And this is actually one of the reasons I wanted to have this podcast, was to have these other conversations, that it isn't just what we see in the clickbait mainstream media where, of course they want people to just click and share and click and share. And I'm like, well, there's so many other sides to the story that need to be heard. And this is going to be so interesting over the next, few years as things grow and change. And, but this is why we need leaders like you, and people need to get support from leaders like you. So speaking of you, tell people, what you have upcoming in the next, few months, 6 months, year, programs, offerings, and where to find you.
Thank you. So as mentioned, my business is always shifting according to who I am in the moment. And my next big thing that's going to be coming out is a psychedelic integration membership community, where you will be able to join our exclusive, the Psyched Souls, which is my Instagram handle as well, the Psyched Soul, where basically you get to have access to integration circles, master classes, my bank of resources, and coaching by me for a very low monthly price. And that's going to be rolling out probably in the next quarter. And then for my bigger program, which is the certification program, we're probably going to start doing that again in the beginning of 2022. I can't believe it. 2022. That's just insane.
Oh my God, I know.
But time, obviously, as we know, is an illusion. And so I'm just going to, those are basically my two main offerings right now. I am also offering very limited amount of consultations for psychedelic businesses. And that's pretty much what I'm focusing on right now. That's what's in alignment for me. And you can find me on the psychedelic-integration-coach.com, as well as there will be finally a website for the Psyched Soul very soon. So maybe we'll put it in the show notes sometime soon.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, Shiri, it was so good to have you here. And everybody, you can find all her links in the show notes and on YouTube. And it was just an honor to have this conversation. I'm sure we'll have you back and get Ben in here as well. Thank you so much for being with us, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Beth. Peace, y'all. Much love.
I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you're feeling inspired, I'd appreciate it if you showed your love with a review. And check out my YouTube channel where you can find the video version of this podcast. You can also head to bethaweinstein.com to learn more about me and grab my free business growth trainings. Remember, you carry your own unique medicine, and your medicine is what we need for these times.